My dear students, welcome to E-Pathshala. I am Professor R.B. Bhagat from International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai. And in this module, I will discuss about categories and determinants of international migration. As you know, international migration is very important dimension of spatial mobility and international relationship and development. And international migration requires some definition, and we have a standard definition. An international migrant is a person who has changed his or her usual place of residence from one country to another, whereas an internal migrant changes his or her usual place of residence within the national boundaries of a country. So we make a distinction between internal migrant and an international migrant. So an international migrant will be called as an international migrant when they have lived in any country more than 1 year, and they were called as immigrants, whereas in relation to the origin country they will be called emigrants. So international migrants are called emigrants in relation to the country of origin and immigrants in relation to the country of destination. International migration all over the world has been playing very important roles in the respective economies. Cross-border migration is among the strong factors that are driving globalization in recent decades. The pattern of this movement over the years have been changing the size, structure and efficiency of labor markets, culture, political situation and people in many countries across the globe. It is a great force of globalization. The magnitude of global international migration, as per recent report, we have around 243 million as per United Nations report. It has increased from 214 million from 2009, and this constitutes about 3% of the world population. We have various categories of international migrants, and they will be defined as long-term immigrants versus short-term immigrants, undocumented, irregular versus documented regular immigrants, and forced versus voluntary immigration. These distinctions are very important because categories and typology of immigration is very important from various point of view, like labor market, like legal and illegal migration, and from the point of view of forced migration. So, how we define a long-term immigrant? A long-term immigrant is defined as a person who moves to a country other than his own country and changes the usual place of residence for a period of at least a year, that is 12 months and more. Such person will be defined as long-term immigrant. On the other hand, a short-term immigration is defined on the basis of international migration when the duration of stay in the destination country is less than 3 months within a year's time. So such persons are defined as short-term immigrants, and it is very important from the point of view of temporary labor migration. So short-term and long-term immigration, the typology is very important in this context. An immigrant may enter the destination country legally or illegally, violating the immigration laws. In such situation, they are called as undocumented migration or illegal migrants. But Now, the term for such migrants is irregular migration. So, we are using three terms for illegal migration, that is illegal migration or undocumented migration or irregular migration. The recent term is irregular migration. Legal or illegal migration we don't use in literature, in migration literature, because migrant cannot be legal or illegal, but the act of migration can be legal or illegal. In this respect, the use of the terminology has been changed from illegal migration to irregular migration. A migratory movement may be voluntary or forced. This is very important distinction in the typology of migration. In the forced migration, there is an element of coercion, including threats to life and livelihood, whether arising from natural or from man-made causes, for example, movement of refugee and displaced person, as well as people displaced by natural, environmental disasters, chemical, nuclear disasters, famines and development projects. So, here in forced migration, we have two important categories. One is the refugee who cross the international boundary and they fear persecution and subjugation of their political rights. On the other hand, there are displaced people, and we call them internally displaced people, and they are within the national boundaries. Both of them are forced migration. There could be other examples of forced migration, which are trafficked people, and they constitute very different category. When we look at determinants, we talk about basically voluntary migration, which can be of long-term migration or short-term migration. In literature generally, in migration, we find that there are various theories of which explain the determinants of migration. And basically these theories have come off from the study of internal migration. So, the determinants of international migration are not different from internal migration. Basically, if we find that the push and pull factor play a very important role. Push factors are the factors which are related to the area of origin, and pull factors are factors which are related to the area of destination. There are number of push-pull factors. Push factor compels people to move out from the area, whereas the pull factor attracts people. There are a large number of push factors. Poverty is one, unemployment, and there are host of other factors related with the area of origin, maybe conflict, riots, persecutions, discriminations, not good weather, all the lack of transportation facility, lack of medical facility, lack of educational facility, all are part of the push factor, gamut of push factor, which compel people to migrate from the area of origin. Not everybody migrates, and therefore many are left behind, and those who migrate, some migrates internally, some migrates internationally. In opposition to push factor, we have pull factors, and pull factors are basically the higher level of income, job opportunity, educational facility, medical facility, attractiveness of the place of destination, weather, good social network. There can be many factors which can play important role in attracting people from the area of origin to the area of destination. But among all factors, among all push-pull factors, it is the income and wage differential between origin and destination that have played very decisive and determining role in international migration. Now, push-pull factor have been looked from various theoretical standpoints, and these theoretical standpoints are gravity model, network theory, circular cumulative causation theory, and world system theory are invoked to explain international migration. These theories are important because they give us the nature of the causes, why migration taking place, who are migrating, and where people are migrating. Gravity model is a geographical model which tells that size of the places matter, size of the country matters, and the distance between country matters. Basically, migration takes place in a very proximate area, very nearby area, and there is a distance decay relationship in the migration, and it is positively related with size of the place or size of the country. So, gravity model basically incorporates push and pull factor and tries to explain in terms of the positive relationship between two places in terms of their size and negatively related with distance. It is a geographical model emphasizing size and distance, whereas there are large number of social factors goes missing in this gravity model, and therefore it doesn't explain why people migrate. And we have network theory, and network theory says basically migrants, whether internal or international, they receive information about the place of destination, and accordingly they decide about the place to visit, a place to migrate. This also has implications for cost of migration. Who is going to subsidize, who is going to support, and therefore this network of friends, relatives, kins, ethnic group, linguistic group, religious group play a very important role in explaining why people migrate. And this network also shows that the cost of migration reduces in such situation. Migration is a risky behavior, and when one undertakes migration, one tries to reduce the risk of migration, and network helps in achieving this and taking a decision in respect with migration. Now, circular cumulative causation theory, it tells that once migration takes place, it becomes circular and cumulative. It means it is perpetuating. Once the network starts and place of origin and place of destination, a relationship has been established, it becomes cumulative and circular. It means that the stream of migration becomes larger and larger, and there is a counter stream also, that is from the place of destination to place of origin, and in this situation it becomes a very intensifying factor in migration, but it doesn't last for very long time, and there are other factors which comes into picture, and this type of cumulative causation theory, this type of cumulative causation activity sees or decimates. We have a global theory of world system, call it world system theory, because international migration says that we are globally connected, and migration is basically part of the capitalist expansion. The area which have been incorporated into capitalist system through the globalization, people migrate to these areas, and the cities located in these world system. So there are areas core, there are areas periphery, and there are areas semi-periphery, and according to that people migrate or intensity of migration takes place. So these theories are invoked to explain international migration. So the question is, which theory is important or which theory is correct? The point is that different theory in fact illuminate different dimensions of migration, and we cannot say one theory is correct over the other, but each theory is complementary to others. According to International Organization for Migration, it says that higher demand for labor in developed economies and availability of labor in underdeveloped economies has set global labor migration in motion. Huge labor market has offered employers the chance to hire migrant workers as part of their cost minimization strategies. Moreover, globalization with its associated forces has increased the mobility of labor across borders. So, international migration has been increasing due to globalization and expansion of economic development across the countries. Studies show that per capita GDP has a positive effect and unemployment rate has a negative effect on countries' net international migration. When I say net international migration, it means that every country there is an outflow of people and there is an inflow of people. What is the net balance of people in that country? It can be negative or it can be positive. So, in that respect, in migration, out migration and net migration comes into the picture. Studies also show that climate change and climate variations have little impact on international migration. It means that most of the climate change related migration occur within the national boundaries. In the countries of origin, it is relatively better off and more educated people emigrate. Skilled migration is a big problem for some countries, and particularly the smaller countries where the number of skilled manpower, professional and technical people are less in number. If they migrate, there is a collapse of the human resources in the country. And this type of skilled migration is called brain drain. But now we have a new concept of brain circulation. Now brain circulation is coming into picture in the light of return migration. We are also receiving or witnessing an increased mobility. And when we say increased mobility, it is not simply the migration or migrant, but also the people who return migration. Because over a period of time, the place of origin itself becomes attractive. The country where the people left becomes attractive. This has not happened in earlier times. In earlier times, people left the country, never returned. And if you look at the migration, international migration in the latter half of the 19th century, when we have huge indentured labor who migrated to South Africa or various parts of Latin America in plantation agriculture, they never returned. Returnees were very less also in this before 60s, 70s. But what we find recently that we have now large number of returnees, and therefore the issue of brain drain is not one-sided. We have brain gain and brain circulation as well as a result of return migration. So I was explaining to you about the brain drain. That is the migration of professional, technical and skilled people from the developing country to the developed countries. And in developing country, you see there are countries which are very small, for example Tajikistan or maybe Zimbabwe. Sri Lanka, Philippines, and there are big countries. So suppose if from these small countries like Zimbabwe or Sri Lanka or Tajikistan, if professionals, technical people and skilled people emigrate to the developed countries, the country's system, human resource system collapses. Country, it is difficult for them to maintain their economic growth and economic efficiency. So for big countries it may be manageable because of large number of unemployed people even in this technical and professional sector. But we have now recently getting a new concept of brain gain and brain circulation, and this is resulting from increased return migration. In earlier decades, people were going and leaving their place permanently. Now these days, due to increase in transportation, communication and IT technology, people are maintaining their contact with place of origin, with their families, with their kins, relatives, friends, and also at a point of time they decide to return. They like to return, and this type of return is benefiting the place of origin, the source region, and this may result into brain gain and brain circulations. Now, in the international map, we have clearly certain areas which are areas of destinations, and there are corridors of international migration, and one of the corridors is North America, that is USA and Canada. The history of these countries, including Australia, very interesting, because these countries have not more than 500 years of history, and these countries have been populated through immigration, and they encouraged immigration, and many of these countries have been benefited through the process of immigration. Immigration was also encouraged by the British government, by the colonial ruler in India. After 1833-34, the slavery was abolished in British Empire, and then a system of indentured labor migration started in the global arena. Indians migrated in a large number to do the plantation agriculture in South Africa, in Fiji, in Suriname, in Trinidad, Tobago, and various parts of Africa and Latin America, and many of them, or most of them, never returned. After Second World War, lot of Indians also migrated, but actually after 1965, the doors of immigration in USA was opened under a new immigration policy, and then lot of Indians, professionals, technicals, doctors, engineers, they immigrated to USA along with other parts of the country. So this is a very important corridor. North America is an important area of destination along with Australia. European Union and Gulf countries are special categories for Indians and many of the countries of South Asia. In Gulf countries, migration is temporary, no nationality is given, and everybody has to return after some time. So this is a very important destination, and also the nature of migration is also different. Another area is the Southeast Asia, and in Southeast Asia we have Malaysia, Singapore and other countries which are also the emerging area of destination. So these are few pockets and areas important as a area of destination. India is both a source and destination, but India supplies more emigrants. We have about 12 million people who are working, living outside the country, compared with 5 million people who have immigrated in this country. So we have net emigration from India, and major states of emigration are Kerala, Punjab, Goa, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. There are certain policy barriers, and these policy barriers are discouraging migration, emerging as a new determinants of shaping migration, and emigration, that is the policy of the state, destination states, creating certain instruments and discouraging migration. This is happening in the backdrop of rise of nativity and resurgence of nationalism at the place of destination. And also migration internationally is affected by global economic crisis. But the most fundamental thing about immigration is that to protect the immigrants' rights, and particularly those who are vulnerable and work in certain sectors of the economy, and particularly in the Gulf countries, those who are working as a skilled and semi-skilled workers, these migrants need protection from our state, from our country. Thank you very much.